Today, let us study Sutra number 8. What does it say? Viparyayo mithyā jñānam atad rūpa pratiṣṭham. Viparyayo mithyā jñānam atad rūpa pratiṣṭham. I've broken it a bit. What does this mean? Maharishi Ved Vyasa translates it as unreal cognition is the knowing of the unreal, possessed of a form not its own. Now, we have to remember that this sutra comes on the heels of sutra number 6, not 7. I'm skipping one. I'm taking you back to 6. Where he says, pramana viparyaya vikalpa nidra smrityah. Okay, which is these painful and non-painful modifications. In 5, he told us there are 5-fold modifications which are painful and non-painful. In 6, he tells us what they are. These are real cognition, unreal cognition, imagination, sleep, and memory. And then in 7, he told us what is real cognition. So today he's telling us what is unreal cognition, which is viparyaya. So unreal cognition is the knowing of the unreal, possessed of a form not its own. So there are 2 parts of this. Knowing of the unreal and possessed of a form not its own. So Vachaspati Mishra explains that in this, the second part, possessed of a form not its own, the instability of the form is clear. So, for instance, unreal cognition is also an imagination, which is the third one. If we are imagining, that's also unreal. So what is the difference? In unreal cognition, its form is contradicted by the common knowledge of mankind. In imagination, this cognition of contradiction does not exist or is not even necessary. So you may imagine, a blue frog with 8 legs, and it's in some story that you write, and it's essential to the story, or a unicorn. You do not need cognition of reality to contradict it. In unreal cognition, the form is contradicted by existing human knowledge. Now, the former knowledge is not removed by the appearance of the unreal cognition. It is the unreal cognition that is removed by the appearance of the former, real cognition, which is retained. So, unreal knowledge does not arise by the destruction of real knowledge, nor does the appearance of real knowledge mean the removal of unreal knowledge, because when real knowledge arises, the unreal doesn't simultaneously exist. Are you getting it? So, unreal does not arise by the destruction of real knowledge. The example he gives is that nescience, which is the absence of knowledge, not ignorance per se, but the absence of knowledge, egoism, attachment, aversion, and love of life are 5 afflictions that are darkness, tamas, forgetfulness, moha, extreme forgetfulness, mahamoha, excessive darkness, tamishra, and blind darkness, andhatamishra. So Vachaspati Mishra explains that the mistaking of the unmanifest, avyakta, for the manifest, mahat, individuality, ahankara, and the 5 atom builders, tanmatras, that is the 8 forms of the non-self for the self. You don't have to bother yourself too much with these specific classifications because you'll study it a bit later. But you're basically mistaking the non-self for the self is nescience, which is the absence of knowledge, and which becomes darkness, that is tamas. This is an example that Ved Vyasa gives. And he says 8-fold is the division of darkness and so of forgetfulness, 10-fold of the greater forgetfulness, and utter darkness is 18-fold, and so also is blind darkness. So many forms of lack of knowledge, okay? And to mistake that lack of knowledge for knowledge is unreal cognition. Swami Satyananda, who's always simpler, and I'm very grateful for his, exposition. It's one of my favorites. He says, wrong conception is false knowledge, which is not based on its own form. So why is Patanjali giving us this sutra? He says Patanjali is dealing with the second type of chitta vrittis that we have to block. And he defines viparyayo as false knowledge, which is not based on or does not correspond to a real object. And this is opposed to right knowledge. Right knowledge is based on the correspondence between our perception and a real object. Wrong knowledge is based on the lack of correspondence between our perception and an object which does not even exist. So, tad rūpa pratiṣṭham is when there is conformity with the real object. Atad rūpa pratiṣṭham is when there is no object on which the conformity can impress itself. And an example for this is when you see a rope and you mistake it for a snake, there is no snake. So therefore, your perception is not only wrong, your cognition is wrong. There is no corresponding object. So false knowledge is corrected by creating conditions that correct it. For instance, you might switch on the light. So viparyayo is also called avidya. All of our understandings based on misunderstanding the nature of the relationship between Purusha and Prakriti. And how is it corrected? Wrong knowledge is ultimately replaced by viveka, which involves correct understanding of the nature, the relationship between Purusha and Prakriti. Swami Vivekananda translates it as indiscrimination is false knowledge not established in real nature. And he says the second class of vrittis arises from mistaking one thing for another, as a mother of pearl is mistaken for silver. B.K.S. Iyengar also keeps this one pretty simple. He says, perverse knowledge, illusory or wrong knowledge is caused by error or misconception. It is based on a distortion of reality. Now, why is it problematic? He says wrong understanding creates wrong feelings, and this can taint the consciousness. And when it taints the consciousness, this hinders the sadhaka, and it can also create a split personality. Or I think what he's referring to is a duality, an existence of duality. And as long as you exist in dualities, you do not see the absolute. Osho says that wrong knowledge is a false conception not corresponding to the thing as it is. And he says we all have this burden of wrong knowledge because before we encounter a fact, we are already prejudiced. So the example he gives is, if you're a Hindu and you're introduced to a Muslim, you have assumed he is wrong. If you're a Christian and you're introduced to a Jew, you do not have an open mind towards this man. Your prejudice has come in. You have a preconception. And this prejudiced mind is what is giving you the wrong knowledge. Nobody from one community is entirely are always good or always bad. So he says the problem is that nobody encounters things as they are. These prejudices that we come in with, these preconceived notions, the pre-fact is what causes viparyayo. What you think if you have not come freshly upon the fact, okay? If you have not come freshly upon the fact, you have come to it wrong. So don't bring your past in, don't bring your prejudices in, don't bring your opinions in. That is the best way to avoid wrong knowledge. And he says one of the oldest yoga aphorisms is die every moment so you can be reborn every moment. Die every moment to the past, throw off all the dust you have collected and look afresh. But this has to be done continuously because the next moment the dust has gathered again. And he gives a really fun story about this master called Nan In, who has a student who has understood impermanence and, okay, that I must die every moment. So he goes to the master and says, what should I learn next? So Nanin says, I will send you, he gives him a letter and he says, I'll send you to this great master, go and spend some time with him. You will unlock the next level of learning. So the disciple takes the letter, he travels a very long distance, reaches this person, then finds out that he's not really some great master, he's an innkeeper. So he stays there and he says, my master said, I must stay with you. So clearly there's something I have to learn. He stays there and he says, this man is not doing anything. Every night he washes the vessels, put the chairs up, locks the inn. Every morning he wakes up, washes the vessels again, puts them out, sweeps, and he does the same thing at night and the same thing at morning. In the morning, and he witnesses this for 4 days, and he says, I'm going back. I have nothing to learn here. And he kind of just goes back. And Nanan says, but that was the learning. That at night, what you lock up and you have cleaned in the morning is going to get dusty again, and you've got to clean it all again and sweep it all again. And that is dying every moment to be reborn every moment. You have to constantly undo your prejudices and the prefect of the mind, of thought. Beautiful story. Barbara Stoller-Miller says that error is false knowledge with no objective basis. Very formal and dry. She says conceptualization is the tendency to construct an image of reality that has no foundation beyond individual subjectivity. For instance, we may have verbal knowledge in which words and meanings fail to correspond with objective reality. This is also, I found this a very useful insight, because one of the things they tell you when you're meditating is do not conceptualize. And this is what they mean. Don't create an image when you're meditating. Just allow the mind to rest, settle, and just observe. So I found it very useful. Thank you for listening to Sutra number 8. Come back tomorrow for Sutra 9. Also, do leave comments and suggestions if this is useful or not useful. It's helpful to help me help you.